Hi, I'm Jenny Brocky. Welcome, everybody. Dorothy, describe your body for me.
Curvy, voluptuous, carefree, and just big and beautiful.
Have you always felt that way about it?
Not really, because I've always been quite thin, but I've just accepted the fact that this is my body now, and it's, thankfully I haven't had any really drastic, medical issues, but I really love my body. It's me. I've got 4 beautiful kids, but I know I mean, there's always the media and everybody out there that thinks there's a certain way that we should be, but and being a Pacific Islander, I mean, this is how we are all pretty much. Most of us quite solid build, but I am comfortable with my own skin.
How is your size viewed in Samoa, where you come from?
Very acceptable, small on top and quite large on the bottom. So I would say my body is quite an ideal body for a Pacific Islander. Small chested and yes. But
so how would you be viewed if you were skinny in Samoa?
Sickly body, not acceptable. It's not, you're sick, you're an outcast.
And how do you think the size that you are is viewed in Australia compared to Samoa?
Well, I think they'll probably think I'm brave to get up here and say that, I love my body,
Jenny, what about you? How do you think your body is viewed here in Australia?
Oh, well, I think that there tends to be a perception that fat is linked with, illness, undesirability, perhaps laziness, gluttonous, those kinds of words.
How do you feel in yourself about your size?
Well, it's changed over the years. And I mean, one of my earliest memories is my mother going to a weight loss group and taking me along. I was just colouring in the corner, and she put on weight that week. So she had to wear a pig snout and sing a piggy song in that group. So I suppose an early memory...
How old were you when you were
About 4 or 5. And she was just trying to do the right thing in her eyes by dieting, going to a weight loss group. And I suppose the shame attached to that image carried through for me. And
so were you actually really then aware of your own weight at that age?
I think, 8 was probably the first age I remember because I said to Mum I'd like to be thinner, and she said, well, you can go on a diet.
You're 8 in this picture, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Now, this is when you're on a diet.
Yes.
You don't look overweight, particularly overweight to me.
Well, thinking back to then, I was beginning to get those feelings that I was disgusting and ugly. And I wrote in my journal when I was 16 that I feared that I had the most disgusting body in the world. So that's the level of fat hatred and fat phobia that can come out of weight critique and food restriction, I believe.
Have you tried to lose weight?
Oh, I tried for 20 years. I started formal dieting at 16 with Herbalife, and then onto calorie counting, light and easy, Weight Watchers, all of those. And, I'm a writer, and just observing the fact that diets didn't work, that they inevitably failed, and I put the weight back on. So at 28, I started to question what I was doing,
Okay. Julius, you're a fitness trainer. What do you think of Jenny and Dorothy being happy with their bodies?
I think that's fantastic. Are you healthy? Have you been to the doctors and they've told you that you're healthy?
Well, I think that's quite a loaded question because I don't think anyone here who's thin is going to be asked that. So I guess that's what I would say to that answer, that we have to look as well at the assumptions that are made. And I would say you can't actually tell someone's lifestyle or health by looking at them. I do think that there's such a health focus in our country that I call it healthism, a kind of moral obligation for people to be healthy. And I think that we have to watch that too.
But isn't that because it costs taxpayers a lot of money if the population isn't healthy? People have to go to hospital, they have various kinds of diseases. Isn't that part of the reason why there's that focus?
Well, perhaps, but I also think that there's very much a focus on fat and health in our culture, on obesity and health.
Heather, what did you want to say?
Well, from a public health perspective, we can talk about individuals being healthy or unhealthy, but on a population basis, people who carry a lot more weight do have more health problems on average. So there is that issue of a greater risk for heart disease and diabetes in particular that we need to be conscious of. So the
Kelly-Jean,
higher
what did
your
you want
weight,
to say?
the more the risk.
I think that people have a blanket idea that all fat people are unhealthy and all fat people are unfit and all fat people are miserable, whereas we are not one person, we are a group of individuals, and each individual has their own relationship to their health in their bodies. I have an incredibly engaged physical activity, and I'm the size that I am.
It's not just exercise, though, that creates a healthy body. It's food. And I think from a perspective, healthy is hugely important with life, with the way we think. Certain foods that I eat make me tired. For my children, we have 4 children, 3 of them are under 2.5. So the foods that I eat every day and that we give to our children every day are so important for their behaviour, for everything.
We'll get on to what people eat in a little bit later on. Australians are getting bigger.
Since 1980, the average Australian's body mass index has gone from 24.9 to 27.7 for men and 23.6 to 27 for women. So what do these increases mean? Let's take Mr. and Ms. Australia from 1980. He weighed just over 77 kilograms. She weighed 62. In 2009, the equivalent couple are almost 9 kilos heavier. That extra weight is equivalent to an adult female koala, or 180 donuts.
Okay, so we've all acquired a koala in those intervening years. How many people here have tried dieting? Just show of hands.
I've tried Jenny Craig, I've tried Light and Easy, and I've tried Weight Watchers, as well as, there was another one that I've tried, but I can't remember. So I've tried about 4 or 5 different weight loss programs.
And how'd you go?
Well, with Weight Watchers, I really did like it, but the thing that I found hard was the motivation aspect. So trying to feel motivated to count the points every single day. That's the thing that I struggled with. But then I think the thing with Jenny Craig and Light and Easy is that unfortunately what happens is you will start the program, you'll get food delivered to you, but then what happens when you stop those programs?
So did you change how you ate yourself when you weren't getting given the food? Or did you just slip straight back into what you were?
I tried to, but I slipped right back.
And what were you eating? What are you eating?
I will admit that my portion sizes are quite big, and I'm trying to eat a smaller portion because they say, for example, you should have like a handful or 1 cup of rice, whereas I think I tend to eat a bit more, like 2 or 3 times more, because my mom's food is really delicious. So.
Okay, I'm just wondering what's driving people to go on these diets. Yep. Yeah.
I think it could be a cultural factor because, like you mentioned about coming from an Indian background, it is, we have a standard of, we have this criteria to judge, and being obese or just chubby can make you automatically fat.
So very different in India to Samoa.
That is,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. Why is it only the women speaking up about this when we know that men are more inclined to be overweight and obese? Yep.
Yeah, well, I was a lot bigger than I am now. I was 280, and I'm now
280 kilos.
Yeah, I'm 110, and I did it. Well, I did it by counting calories and doing as much exercise as I could, but that's my journey. And so I don't judge other people at all.
How did you feel inside yourself, about yourself when you were that weight?
Body image, yeah, that kind of got me. But what got me was that there is outright discrimination, but not said out loud discrimination. The stares that you get every single day when a complete stranger hands you a note on the bus telling you that you need to go on a diet and you need to go see Jenny Craig. That when you have families laugh at you, when you have kids giggle at you all the time, and also that whole thing about laughter with it, that it's a joke. And the way I described it is it's the last thing of bigotry that you're allowed to get with if you're a stand-up comedian. You can bag out fat people all you like and you get away with it and no one has a problem with that because they go, that's funny, isn't it? They're fat.
Louise, you're a psychologist. You specialise in eating issues and body image. Describe your clients for us. How do they see themselves when they get to the point where they come to you?
Very distressed about their bodies and very upset and frustrated with this continuous cycle of dieting and then regaining the weight. And basically the evidence is just in that diets don't work. You know, dieting, within 5 years, you know, most people have regained the weight. The failure rate for dieting is so high that if a diet was an operation, no one would go and have it. You know.
So why is it so pervasive? Why do most of the people in this room put their hand up when I ask them if they've been on a diet?
I think it's a distortion within our society, and a number of people have mentioned that size and body image is just so important, but healthy eating really isn't part of the agenda. Dieting is part of the agenda. There's a whole industry out there that supports dieting, that supports weight loss programs, and yet, as just mentioned, the long-term effectiveness is very, very small. So we should be advocating much more health at any weight and really focusing on healthy food and activity and actually getting on with other people and social interaction, because that's what's going to make our society healthier in the long run.
See, this is so interesting, I think, because we have so many public health campaigns that are driving the message home for people to lose weight. But you're saying that when they go off to do it, they go off and diet and it doesn't work.
That's right, that's right. And I think, you know, the message that's not getting out is that we actually don't need to lose weight to become healthy. You know, I think we need to be focusing much more on health behaviours and helping people to have self-care and movement for the joy of it, as opposed to kind of getting calories in, calories out. We really need to shift the messages. And I think at the same time we need to empower people to look after themselves rather than trying to lose weight based on shame and self-hatred, because that doesn't help people, you know, with anything.
So can you be fat and healthy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there's very large studies coming out saying that around 30% of people in that kind of obese range are actually perfectly metabolically healthy.
Julius, I wonder whether you think people shouldn't be as big as some of the people in this room are. Do you think that's the case?
No, I think it's up to everybody to be as big as they want to be, but if you're not happy with your size, don't try and make excuses and reasons as to why you are happy with your size when you're clearly in your head you're definitely not happy. And if it's a reason, you know, people say that they eat for comfort. Is it because you are obese that you eat for comfort? If that's the case, then just face the fact that you're not happy with your size, and rather than making, you know, reasons around you as to why you're not.
Sorry, Jenny, there's too much emphasis placed on the discrimination of fat people. What we should be looking at is the health aspects for everybody. Being fat is not good for the individual, it's not good for society, and it's certainly not good for the health dollar. I mean, the medical system is buckling under the sheer weight of the 60% of people that are overweight and obese. And I'd like to see the documentation that says that an obese person, someone that's 150 or 160 kilos, can be healthy. Can someone be fit and fat? Yes, someone can be fit and fat, but to be an ideal weight and fit is better than to be fit and fat. And fit and fat are a very small minority of that 60%.
Is that right, Heather? You're a public health expert.
Well, as you go up in size, the risk of chronic disease also goes up. So yes, there is the increased risk, and it is costing our health system something like, in total, something like $60 billion, because our community as a whole has greater size. You're talking about the Samoan community and other Pacific Island communities. Yes, they're larger as a population now, but a couple of generations they weren't. But also as a community now, you have much higher rates of diabetes in particular.
And we're very conscious of that.
Yeah,
My generation's conscious because
community.
now we've got aunts and uncles that are dying at such a young age. And
That's
for me,
right.
I certainly would not be wanting to die now, and even my kids. I'm conscious that because my mum has a heart disease, my father's a diabetic, so I'm aware of those health issues that I could one day get.
Your GP is here, and Paniani, you deal with a lot of Pacific Islanders in your practice, don't you? What sort of advice then do you give someone like Dorothy about her weight and about eating and health and exercise and so on?
It's a bit difficult because Dorothy comes out of a cultural background where being fat is encouraged and being attractive as well, versus the health issues that they are facing now. So I would tell Dorothy that I find 80% of my patients have some sort of chronic problem.
And you associate that with their weight?
And I associate it with their weight.
Godifa, you came here from Ethiopia as a refugee almost 20 years ago. How much did you weigh when you arrived in Australia?
About 48.
And what did you weigh after a couple of years here?
It's 94.
So 2 years and you virtually doubled your size.
Yeah. Once you come to Australia, so it's you got everything. You got the food. Yes, McDonald's was new. It's new McDonald's. All the junk foods that you get on the street. Pizza and all of that. So, but it's not only the food. It's the quantity of the food itself, because I have a habit. I don't really get up from the dinner table until either I am full or also the food is finished on the plate. And also, like Dorothy, it is culturally. What I know is thin people are sick. And those people who are fat and good body build, they are healthy. So
when you went back to Ethiopia to visit and you were that much bigger, what did the people who knew you say?
They were excited. They were celebrating because I am really in a good. You look good. You look fantastic, and I believe that.
And what about now? What about your weight now?
I'm 73, 74. So I really work hard. I didn't know.
What made you work hard? What pulled it back for you?
The doctor's warning, and I just went to the hospital for some respiratory issues, and the doctor said, your weight is another factor, and I found it hard to believe the doctor that I am, I'm sick because of my weight.
Juliet, can you relate to this? Because you came here from Zambia, yes?
Yes, I came from Zambia, and what he's saying is true. When I came here, I think I was twice or maybe, I was very, very small. I was a size 12 when I came to Australia in 1996. And when I went back home, when someone tells you you are big or you've put on weight, it's a compliment rather than
criticism.
Yes. My parents, my in-laws, they were so excited when I went back because I had put on weight.
What happened to your health?
I'm diabetic at the moment. I'm type 2 diabetic. I've got diabetes type 2. And after it was gestational, when I had my last child, who is 8 years old, and I was on insulin when I was pregnant 4 times a day. So I had put on a lot of weight. So that changed my habits of eating because I put on a lot of weight in a very short time.
Andre, you study the eating habits in migrant communities. How common are those stories?
Yeah, they are really very common, but actually what's not coming out as they talk, that can relate to the people who spoke earlier, is the societal pressure. Because once you come to Australia, if you don't put on weight, then you look ridiculous. So you have to put on weight to fulfill the societal pressure back home. That's the pride you get, and so when you go back, there is a sense of satisfaction. But the food they eat, while here you call it unhealthy, for them they call it food for what people? Food for rich people. So it's a food they could never afford back home, but while you call it unhealthy, but for them, it's actually the food everyone aspired to eat prior to migration.
There's about 8,000 or 9,000 lap bands done around the country a year.
So how old were you when you had the operation?
20. I had it done in December.
My lap band eroded into my stomach.
Leanne, you've lost 42 kilos. Why did you want to get your weight down?
Health reasons, but you know, just on like some of these people talking, when people say things when you're overweight, I don't know that they're being discriminatory as such. I think, you know, I got asked one time when I booked in for horse riding, are you over 100 kilos? Because obviously the horse can't handle higher weight. They weren't being me. I thought it was disgusting at the time. But they've got an obligation to their animal to do that.
But you wanted to get your weight down?
Yeah, definitely.
For health reasons? And
health reasons and for my own self-esteem.
Okay, you had lap band surgery.
Yep.
Let's have a look at how it works.
Gastric banding is the most common form of surgery to treat obesity in Australia. Often called lap band surgery, it's performed through a keyhole-like incision. The gastric band is like a collar, wrapped around the top of the stomach. The band can be adjusted by injecting saline through a tube placed under the skin.
Now, Wendy, you've done about 1,000 of these operations in Melbourne. What are the risks associated with doing that?
There's risks with any surgery, so there's a risk of bleeding, infection and blood clots, and even dying under anaesthesia for any operation we do. And there's a risk that we can damage the area we're operating on around the stomach, but it's very safe surgery.
Okay, now I should point out that your research centre gets funding from Allergan, which is a manufacturer of lap bands. So how can your research into whether it's safe or not be independent?
In the world that we live in now, where the tertiary sector are having their funding's cut all the time, we've asked actually to make industry partnerships. And I guess one of the natural partnerships for us is the manufacture of the gastric band, the same as for people who are investigating high blood pressure. It might be the companies that make the drugs that treat high blood pressure.
I should point out it's quite common in universities for this to be the case. But in terms of those people coming to you, are more people coming to you for lap band surgery now? I mean, it's gone from, what, 500 to 17,000 in 10 years.
There's been a big increase through the 2000s, but since about 2009, it's really plateaued out. There's about 8,000 or 9,000 lap bands done around the country a year, and then probably about 4,000 of the other bariatric procedures.
Leanne, how big were you?
116 kilos.
Were you aware of the risks associated with the surgery?
Yep. But as I was told, it's, you know, no more. Professor O'Brien said to me he can do it probably safer than he can do a hernia operation. So
what can and can't you do now in terms of eating?
Nothing apart from bread, really. I can't eat bread because that sort of clugs together. And steak, the steak doesn't go down.
What happens if something doesn't go down?
It gets stuck.
And what happens then?
You go to the toilet and it comes up. So
you vomit?
You know, yeah, it comes up, but it's not like vomit. It's just like, comes up like solid still.
So what can you eat now? What do you
everything.
eat now?
Fruit, vegetables, certain lettuces don't go down very well, but anything that everyone else eats.
And much smaller amounts?
Smaller amounts. I don't have breakfast. And I was told when I was first looking at it that it'll become about quality, not quantity. And I never believed that for a minute. I thought, who can forget to have lunch? You know, you don't think about it anymore.
Brianna, you're Leanne's daughter. What would you eat?
Oh, everything. Like I used to eat all the time, everything. Like I was hungry all the time. And I work night shifts, so I was eating at weird times of the day, and I would crave foods like hot chips and gravy and just anything, cake, ice cream. I used to eat like half a loaf of bread for breakfast.
So you decided to have the surgery that your mum had had. How old were you when you made that decision?
I was 20.
6 months ago.
Yeah, 20. I was 20. I was 6 months ago.
And why did you opt for surgery?
Multiple reasons, mainly because I absolutely hated the way I looked. Everything about myself. Going through high school from about 15, I was bullied a lot because called every name under the sun, and I just hated everything about myself.
Had you tried to change your diet before?
Absolutely, yep. I tried to change everything. I didn't have, to be quite honest, the willpower to sit there and say, I'm just going to eat a salad and I'm not going to eat till dinner. Like, I couldn't do it because I was hungry all the time.
Okay. How did you feel about that, Mum, about your daughter having that operation at 20?
Because I knew how it worked. I was actually probably the one that talked to her about it because I know how she felt about her body. My husband was sceptical about it. He was like, oh no, she should try everything else first. And like everyone else, I think it might be the easy option. It's definitely not the easy option, but it's a tool for you to work with. It stopped her being hungry. Like, you can get out, you can exercise, and you definitely can't exercise. Anyone that says they're fit at overweight, I've been there, you're not fit.
Were you doing exercise, Brianna?
No, not really. I had tried, but I couldn't maintain exercise or the level that I needed to, because I would try running and it's not so much that I was being laughed at, it was more in my head, like I would feel like running down the street I would be looked at and that sort of thing, because I could feel every bit of me jiggling. Like, it was just, it sounds stupid, but it's such a mental thing as well.
Wendy, how did doctors decide who to give the surgery to? I mean, are there guidelines? Is there an age limit on this?
There's guidelines. There's guidelines. Most states will have guidelines around age, which is 18 to 65 in my state, Victoria, and around size. We wouldn't normally offer this surgery unless your BMI was greater than 35 and you had a comorbidity of your obesity, because if you are comorbidity meaning a disease that can be changed by losing weight.
What was your BMI?
My BMI was 35, and on top of that I have polycystic ovaries and I have endometriosis. And if I hadn't lost weight, if I kept going the way I was going, it was likely to end up that I wouldn't have been able to have kids.
Louise, do you have a view on this?
I'm more interested in what happens to people in the long term after these kinds of surgeries, because I really don't think we know enough about what happens to people, you know, post-operatively. Some of the studies that look long-term, sort of 10 years, do show, you know, that these kinds of operations don't tend to last in terms of that dramatic weight loss, and often the health problems that get taken away initially come back. So
okay, Suzette, what happened to you? You had surgery?
I did. I had a gastric band in 2007, and over the next 2.5 years I lost around 50 kilos, probably 55 kilos. Then mine just basically stopped working, and I think I'd figured it out as well. I'd worked it out.
How had you figured it out? What do you mean?
Well, I'd worked it out. I'd worked how I could get food in that I wasn't meant to. You know, you drink a glass of water when you're eating something and it washes everything down. You know, you eat things that go down easier, you know, chips, chocolate, whatever. All that sort of stuff that just slides on down really easily, you know. Then after 3 or 4 years, I gradually put back on about 25 kilos of the weight that I lost, and then I just realised this is just ridiculous. I don't want to put the weight back on. I don't want to get back up to that weight I was. I loved feeling how I felt when I was at my lowest weight.
So what did you do?
I had gastric bypass surgery after a long discussion with my surgeon and lots of information and lots of, you know, working things out.
Okay, this is different to lap band surgery. Yes. Let's have a look.
Gastric bypass reduces the size of the stomach using staples, creating a small upper pouch. The lower part of the small intestine is then connected to this new pouch. To help digestion, fluids from the bypass section of the stomach are released through a new connection.
You had that operation fairly recently, yeah?
11 weeks ago today.
11 weeks, how are you going?
I've lost 20 kilos and I feel fantastic. It's different to the band. You don't have that constricting feeling like you spoke about, that sort of things getting stuck. You don't have that. It's everything. My meal sizes are just so much smaller, And with the bypass, you have to steer clear from things that are really high in sugar. So that just knocks out a whole range of things that you just can't eat anymore.
What drove all this for you? I mean, you say that you wanted to be smaller, but were there health issues that you were worried about?
There was. I've got family history. You know, my father passed away of heart disease young. My mum had cancer. My family, we're all bigger. We're all bigger. I've been big since I was in primary school.
Why did you have to go for the surgical option?
I think I was addicted to food. I tried all those other things that everyone has spoken about, the Jenny Craig, the Weight Watchers, the Herbalife, the you name it, and I just think I had an addiction to food.
Louise, can you be addicted to food?
What you're talking about happens to a lot of people, and I think when you diet off and on, you develop a very unhealthy relationship with food. Food's not just food. Food has all of this kind of association.
Kate, run us through all the things that you've done to try to lose weight.
Everything listed. Jenny Craig, Light and Easy, tablets that Oprah recommended that I shipped out secretly. I took to my stomach with a scalpel. I used to throw up every meal.
Wait a minute, you took to your stomach with a scalpel?
My stomach and my arms. No, tried to cut the fat off because I couldn't.
How old were you when you did that?
About 20. Yeah.
So real self-loathing?
Yeah, I hate myself. Yeah.
You hate yourself still?
Yeah, I don't like my body at all. I find it disgusting.
Where does that come from, that feeling? When did you first start feeling like that?
As a young child, I was told, oh, you have thick thighs, you know, things like that. I was probably not taunted as such, but it was, you know, lucky you've got a good personality because, you know, you're so fat. Things like that. So lucky you're outgoing, lucky you've got pretty eyes. I put up that you're fat, so you've got a barrier, so you've got no feelings. So I let it happen. I taunted myself. And then it became self-loathing all the time.
Okay, so you went through all of this and then you had lap band surgery and you lost 90 kilos?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
What was that like at first?
The first 52 was awesome. I thought I was the king of the world. I felt great because I was finally wearing normal person clothes and people actually started to come to me and talk to me, you know, felt good.
Did it last?
No, not at all.
So what happened?
I had lap band erosion. My lap band eroded into my stomach. I had a hole in my stomach, so all of my stomach acid was leaking through my abdominal wall. My abdomen was infected with my own acids. And
so what happened then?
I was really sick, really sick. I had Roux-en-Y surgery, so I had like
What's that?
Basically, I have no stomach really. I have a small well of a stomach. They had to remove more of my stomach than what they anticipated because of the scar tissue and the damage done. So I now don't really have any stomach.
And you also had skin removed?
Yes, I had about 15 kilos of loose skin removed. Another thing I wasn't really told a lot about when you have rapid weight loss was that when you're that stretched and you're that big, that snapping back into place doesn't always happen. So I had a lot of skin removed, and it was about that time that we figured out that something was infecting my body as well because I got a massive infection from circumferential surgery.
We've got those photos there. It looks incredibly painful, was it?
I had the surgery 12 months ago, and now I actually have a massive incisional hernia that now I'm on the public health system waiting to have that removed as well.
You sound angry about
I'm really
this.
angry about it. I'm angry that people are misinformed. I'm angry that they're doing it on 20-year-old girls. Really angry. You know, the idea that you can be buried with this thing, that it can be increased and decreased, and it's not at all.
Because it does have to be does have to be increased, doesn't it? It has to be adjusted, Wendy. It's not something you have done and then that's it.
It's not a set and forget procedure. It's part of a process, and I feel for Kate, but unfortunately, I guess it's a bit like saying that some people who are overweight don't have any health problems. Some people who get these surgeries get complications.
But the surgery, you need to be informed.
Oh,
That's
you do,
my
absolutely.
biggest thing,
And it's
is
a
that you're so misinformed.
Well,
why do you say you're misinformed?
You're sold a product. You're willing to lay out $10,000 and you're sold a product. It's the same as going to Jenny Craig and being told for $10 a month you can use 10 kilos. People buy that. We pay the money for the lap band because we're buying it. And fat people are vulnerable people. Fat people that dislike themselves, not fat people that are happy with themselves. We're vulnerable. We're scared, we're lonely, we're depressed, so we're vulnerable. You tell me I can lose 50% of my excess weight, I'm going to do it and I'm going to pay for it. And because I'm willing to outlay the cash for it, you're going to do it. And you're sold a product. That's all you are.
Suzette, what did you want to say?
I had my surgery 2007 and I was completely informed about the erosion, ports flipping, you know, anything, everything. And I was even given the choice of a bypass back then in 2007. And the gastric sleeve was even mentioned as well.
Which is a more drastic surgery, yeah?
I've been sicker since having lap band surgery than prior to. I've had 1 to 2 surgeries over the last 7 years, every year. And I had no diseases. I had no high blood pressure, no heart disease, no respiratory problems, no joint problems. I had no diabetes. I was just fat. I was the classic victim of the diet. I'd do the extreme dieting. I'd lose 5 kilos. I'd feel great. Then I'd lose 7 and then it would plateau, that famous plateau that everyone gets to. And I'd get depressed and down about it. And, you know, it's the whole comfort eating thing, I suppose. Then I'd try another diet, or I'd detox and try another diet. And so I was that person.
Can you honestly say that you are 100% happy and healthy?
I think it's really interesting that I feel like I need to justify my existence in this room.
No, but hang on a minute. You asked her to justify her decision.
When you eat more than you need to and aren't as active as you should be, fat doesn't just build up around your waist. A toxic fat also builds up around your vital organs, releasing dangerous levels of chemicals that bring heart disease, diabetes and cancer closer. Fat around your waist is bad, but toxic fat around your vital organs is worse.
Dorothy, what do you think of that ad?
Man, dang. Why don't they have something about people who are slim, like, you know, they get too skinny that they're going to get diseases? Like, it's always concentrated on fat, like...
Godfrey, what about you? What do you think of that ad?
I think for me it is scary. It doesn't tell you anything rather than a scare, terror.
Jenny, what do you think of the ad?
I would argue it's negative. I think even using terms like toxic fat, I mean, there's really no such thing. That's just made up for the ad. And I think a lot of these kinds of ads are quite negative, like the most recent one that I saw on the tram, which was partly Diabetes Australia, and it's what we call a headless fatty. So you see this portion of the person, which you often see in the media, and it allows people to disconnect from fat people, to not feel that empathy. It's very disembodied image.
Kate, what about you? What did you think?
That's scary. It's scary when you know what's going on inside of you. It's actually worse than what it looks like on the outside. But I've got a favourite saying, and it's called skinny fat. And there's people out there that are skinny and they still eat crap. I've got friends that have got cholesterol problems that are the ideal BMI, the ideal weight. They've got cholesterol problems, heart disease, diabetes, and they're skinny.
Wendy, would you consider that a success if somebody just lost the weight but had all the other problems?
No, not at all.
But would it be reported as such in the literature as a success?
We report weight, but we also report comorbidity change and quality of life change. They're the 3 things we look at. And I've had patients that have only lost 5% of their extra weight or haven't lost weight at all, but for their weight being stable for them is what they were looking for, and they've seen an improvement in their health and sense of well-being. And to me, I'm just as happy with them as I am with the rare one that has lost the most.
I don't think you've answered my question.
But I think the vast majority of people only lose about half of their extra weight. So we're we're bringing people down from a BMI of 43 to a BMI of sort of 33. We're not making people into the normal healthy weight range. We're just making them healthier. And we always report weight, health and quality of life. And it's the three things we look at.
Heather, we know that Australians are, I mean, we saw earlier, Australians are getting bigger despite all the anti-obesity campaigns and ads like that. Why? Why are we getting bigger?
Well, there's a number of social changes that have occurred, and a lot of people have mentioned about fast food and high fat, high sugar food being readily available. It's cheap, it's promoted a lot to children. And one of the things that was also raised is having the skills to know, well, what is a normal size, and are we focused on teaching our children a healthy relationship with food?
Are we teaching the right things though, do you think?
Well, there's only a few schools that run, cooking classes in primary school. Now, surely having the skills to prepare food in a way, whatever way one wants to, but actually having the skills and control oneself to be able to do that, surely that it should be considered a basic skill for all young people in our society, but it's not valued in our education system.
We also know that junk food can be a lot cheaper sometimes than buying healthy food. Yeah?
And with the economic downturn, junk food relative to healthy food has become cheaper.
Louise, what do you think of ads like the one we saw?
I think if we're going to spend money on advertising, we should spend money on this is how to look after yourself, and maybe not, messages about have a surgery option or go on a diet, but things like psychologists teach, like get in contact with things like hunger and fullness, learn mindful eating, get that relaxed attitude towards food that I think is the foundation of health.
I think one of the prevailing things that are happening here is that what I'm hearing is this intense sort of discussion around self-hatred and when you're in a bigger body. And I wanted to ask people, like down the front there, you who's 20, is your life better? Are you happier? Is everything better now that you're slightly smaller than you were before? I mean, I think one of the things
let's get an answer to the question. Are you?
Absolutely. And I'm not a little bit smaller, I'm a lot smaller. And I did do research into everything. I can still have kids, and that may not have happened if I had stayed the size I was. Like, my question to you is, can you honestly say that you are 100% happy and healthy? Like, you have no medical conditions whatsoever, you have no problems at all with your health at your weight as compared to...
Can we have an answer? No. The question's been asked. What's the answer?
I think it's really interesting that I feel like I need to justify my existence in this room.
No, but hang on a minute. You asked her to justify her decision.
I asked her if she was happy. I didn't ask her to justify what her health issues now or if there is any.
But have you got any health issues?
No, I'm perfectly happy.
I'd love to know, what do you see as healthy with eating?
It's interesting that you've just assumed that I eat bad food because of my size.
I'd love to know, because if you're really healthy, do you have any joint issues, or so you're completely...
I swim 2.5 kilometres a day. Yeah. I walk, I exercise all the time. I am in a synchronised swimming team, and I really resent the fact that I have to actually justify my existence and my ability to live in the world in a bigger body in a way that I'm
But we're all
happy
talking
with.
about health tonight. I mean, the whole show is about weight and health.
No,
so
what
it's
we're
not
talking
an unreasonable...
about is surgery, and we haven't actually talked about the possibility that you can actually live in your life.
No, but we
in
have.
This body.
We have talked about that. But all I'm saying is that a question to anyone about what they eat in the context of this program, anyone in this room, is perfectly reasonable, I think.
But it's interesting that they've only been
directed at fat people. No. It's not about being fat or not being fat. It's about what everybody eats. Well, it's about what everybody eats and what health is. What health
you're conflating fashion and
No,
eating and
I'm
health.
asking. No. I'm not conflating anything. I'm saying I think it's perfectly reasonable in the context of a discussion where you've got research that suggests that people who are overweight and people who are obese can be more prone to particular health problems. I think it's quite reasonable in that context when we're talking about diet, we're talking about losing weight, gaining weight, whether people are happy or not happy with their weight, for someone to say, what's your diet, in this room, in this context, seems to me to be perfectly reasonable.
I think those questions have been asked a lot, and I guess what we're saying is that there are other ways to frame a discussion about fat, not just about health. And also, I do think that it's problematic that you're asking individual people, are you healthy? Because even
I'm not asking anyone if they're healthy.
Well, not necessarily you.
Someone, no. Hang on, don't put words in my mouth.
Well,
Don't
can I
put
ask the
words in my
question,
mouth.
Jenny?
Well,
Somebody asked, and I just want to know, are you prepared to answer the question? Is anyone prepared to answer the question about what do you eat? No, what do you eat?
What do I
You know,
eat?
what sort of stuff do you... Wasn't that your question? What was your question, Shani?
Yeah, she wanted to know what I ate.
Because Julius asked, sorry, I don't know your name, but Julius asked you before, Jenny, what you ate, and you avoided the answer.
No, I answered the question
But
differently.
you're saying
by
you're
saying,
healthy. I want to know. Like,
no,
if you're healthy, I want to know.
I said that I wouldn't answer that question because I
Why?
felt
Why?
that a lot of thin people would not be asked that question. We're being asked to justify an existence.
Well, I'll tell you what
and
I eat. I'm quite
will
comfortable to tell you what I eat every single day.
I'll just finish my statement, and that is that I think this conflation of fat and health is one thing, but another thing is whether a fat person's healthy or not is not necessarily the primary question that I think we should focus on the whole time here.
But it becomes a public health issue when it costs the community money.
All right, and I work as an academic
if a lack
and
of
I earn
health,
and I pay
if a lack of
35%
health with
tax.
a smoker, if a lack of health with a smoker costs the community money, it becomes a point of discussion. So why shouldn't it be a discussion about anything where there is evidence that it may be costing the community money for people to be carrying extra weight?
Because I think it frames fat as a drain on society. And my response is a lot of us work, a lot of us pay taxes. You know, we're not just a drain on society. And that kind of constant barrage of you're costing this, you're costing that, first of all assumes an individual is the same as a group and also assumes that we are only a drain on society. And then we talk about fat hatred as if, it comes out of nowhere.
I just think that how the way the discussion is running is very indicative of the general prevailing attitude towards fatness and the refusal to even accept that potentially there can be other ways of living as in a healthy body.
Saying fat power, fat power. I just want to know. What are you eating? Like, I just want to know, and I'll tell you what I eat, and we can work out.
So that's what it comes down to. Like what you're saying is incredibly, like, it's such a small equation that you want to know what I eat. I eat salad. I eat meat. I don't eat carbs because they don't agree with me. I eat a lot of fruit and vegetables. I'm primarily vegetarian.
Hang on one minute. I want to ask her a question. Heather, are there some people who just can't lose weight, no matter what they do? If we leave surgery out of it, I guess the question is how much of it is environmental. You know, how much of weight is environmental is what you actually do with your body, and how much is genetic.
It is very difficult to lose weight once you've put it on, and the figures cited earlier. 3 to 5% success rate with dieting. If you go into those cycles of dieting, you're likely to end up weighing more than if you didn't diet at all. You can carry extra weight, sort of BMI up to around 30, and in fact be slightly healthier than if you're normal to low weight. So there is a lot of social stigma associated with carrying extra weight that we're not dealing with within our society.
I guess
forcing people into some of this drastic.
Yeah. The reason I'm asking that question is the blame factor. You know, is that sitting behind all of this in a judgment about people's weight is very often blame. Is the idea that you're bringing it on yourself. You must eat. Your point. You must eat badly. You must have a terrible diet, and so on. I'm just wondering if we know the extent to which weight is, something that you acquire through your behaviour, and the extent to which for some people it is just genetic. No matter what they do, they're going to be big.
The answer to that is definitely, categorically, no. Everyone can lose weight. There's a simple equation. It's called energy in, energy out. If you're fat, you exercise, that's the energy out. And the energy in is the fat that you carry on your body. Everyone can lose weight.
Really hard.
I know it's hard, but the question was, are there people that can't lose weight? And the answer to that's no.
That's actually not true.
Okay, Louise, you're saying it's not true.
No, that's absolutely categorically wrong. There are, of course, what you're saying is true, that genetics haven't changed, but our environment's changed, and the genes and the environment interact. And genetically, there are many people who are very efficient at hanging on to body weight and will struggle with a calorie deficit to lose weight and keep it off. And that is just simple biology. And there's a lot of research to sort of show that what you're saying isn't correct.
We have to wrap up. We have to wrap up. We're running out of time, and we have to wrap up. Wendy, there's a question I wanted to ask you. Are you treating the symptom and not the cause with the surgery?
I'm treating my patient. I'm treating the person who comes to me and asks for help. And I don't always get it right. No surgeon gets it right all the time. There's no such thing as a magic bullet or a magic solution. But I hope by forming a relationship with my patient, then I can identify what their needs are and I can try to help them as best I can.
Okay, final comment from you, Heather.
You know, we really need to be looking at this systemically and getting away from just individuals, because every individual's got their own story. We need to be really thinking as a society what we're doing to encourage acceptance, absolutely, but also enabling the next generation, our children, to live as healthy as possible, as well as ourselves. So, you know, promoting access to healthy food that is cheap and affordable and enjoyable, and knowing how to prepare that, having confidence to do that, but also really focusing on positive relationships between people as well.
Kate?
Yeah.
Final comment from you?
Be informed. Be 100% informed about any decision you make, whether it be diet and exercise, surgery, remaining overweight and being happy with yourself. Just be informed of what the outcome's going to be for your future, your children's future, your family's future. That's all.
Okay, we have to wrap it up here.
Your videos in entirety.
He's a liar! Alex Jones is a fucking liar!
What does he lie about?
He fucking makes up shit.
Name one.
Fucking... Off the top of my head.
Yes, I love it! He's got nothing!
Hey, I mean, dude, he's